20th June 2025 began as an ordinary Friday on Stanley Road in Bootle, Liverpool, until a sudden act of violence unfolded in broad daylight and shattered a family's life forever. Just after lunchtime, outside a small convenience shop called Low Cost Food and Wine, a woman was attacked in full public view. Emergency services were called within minutes. By the end of the day, Nilani Nimalarajah, aged 44 and a mother of 3, had unalived in hospital. What followed would be described by police and the courts as one of the most severe domestic violence cases they had ever encountered. Nilani was a familiar face on Stanley Road. She worked at the shop and lived in the flat above it with her children. Neighbors and customers knew her as polite, hardworking, and devoted to her family. Behind the scenes, however, she had been trying to escape a relationship that had become controlling and frightening. She had separated from her former partner, Nimalarajah Mathiyadaranam, aged 47, after enduring harassment and intimidation. The separation did not bring safety. Instead, it led to increased fear. Mathiyadaranam had already been convicted of harassment against Nilani. Courts had issued restraining orders to protect her and her children, legally barring him from contacting or approaching them. Nilani followed the legal process, trusting that these measures would help keep her safe. They did not. On the morning of 20 June 2025, Mathiyadaranam made a series of deliberate decisions that later became central to the prosecution case. According to court evidence, he purchased knives earlier that day, choosing weapons capable of causing serious harm. He then boarded public transport and traveled directly to Bootle, to the shop where Nilani worked. Prosecutors later described these actions as clear proof that the attack was planned, deliberate, and targeted. Shortly after midday, Nilani stepped outside the shop. CCTV footage later shown in court captured Mathiyadaranam approaching her. What followed was a sustained and violent assault. He grabbed her and stabbed her repeatedly in the head and chest. The force used was so extreme that the tip of the knife broke off during the attack. The violence happened in seconds, in full view of passers-by, customers, and nearby shopkeepers. People screamed and ran toward Nilani as she collapsed on the pavement. Others stood frozen in shock. Above the shop, in the family flat, one of Nilani's teenage daughters heard the disturbance. Believing at first that someone drunk was causing trouble, she went downstairs. When she saw her mother lying injured outside, she ran to a neighboring shop, screaming for help. That moment would later be described in court as one of the most distressing aspects of the case. Police officers arrived quickly and detained Mathiyadaranam at the scene. When questioned, he admitted what he had done, telling officers, "I did it," and repeating the admission when asked again. Nilani was rushed by ambulance to hospital, but her injuries were too severe. She died shortly after arrival, having been unlived by multiple stab wounds. Following his arrest, Mathiyadaranam claimed to have ingested poison. He was taken to the Royal Liverpool Hospital, where he was treated for organ failure under police guard. Once he recovered sufficiently, he was formally charged with causing Nilani's unaliving. As the case moved through the courts, a clearer picture of the months leading up to the attack emerged. Prosecutors detailed repeated harassment, breaches of boundaries, and Nilani's attempts to protect herself through legal means. Despite restraining orders and prior convictions, Mathiyadaranam was still able to reach her at her workplace and home, a failure that raised serious concerns about the effectiveness of protective measures. The trial took place at Liverpool Crown Court. Initially, Mathiyadaranam pleaded not guilty, with his defense suggesting that alcohol or substances had affected his judgment. The evidence told a different story. CCTV footage, witness accounts, purchase records and his own admissions demonstrated planning and intent rather than impulsive behavior. On 15 January 2026, during the trial, Mathiyadaranam changed his plea to guilty. The following day, 16 January 2026, he was sentenced. The judge imposed a life sentence with a minimum term of 28 years and 182 days before parole could even be considered. In sentencing remarks, the judge described the attack as exceptionally brutal and calculated. He said Nilani had been trying to live independently and protect her children, and that the violence inflicted on her was both sustained and merciless. The court emphasized the lifelong impact on Nilani's children, who had lost their mother in the most traumatic circumstances. Senior police officers involved in the investigation described the case as one of the worst examples of domestic violence they had ever handled. They highlighted the fact that restraining orders had been in place, yet were not enough to prevent the attack. The case became a stark example of the dangers faced by victims after leaving abusive relationships. Nilani's family spoke through victim impact statements. Her eldest daughter described her mother as her anchor, her teacher, and her source of strength. She spoke of future milestones that would now be faced without her guidance, and of a loss that could never truly be put into words. Beyond the courtroom, Nilani's unlived life became part of a wider national discussion about domestic abuse, coercive control, and the risks associated with separation. Advocacy groups pointed to her case as a painful reminder that leaving an abusive partner is often the most dangerous time, even when victims seek help and comply with legal advice. Today, the shop on Stanley Road continues to open its doors each day, but for many in the community, it will always be tied to what happened there. Nilani Nimalarajah is remembered not for the violence that ended her life, but for the life she lived as a mother, a worker, and a woman trying to build a safer future for her children. Her story stands as a warning and as a call to do better in protecting those at risk. Cases like this are difficult, but they matter. I'd like to know what you think. Should more have been done to protect Nilani? What lessons should be learned from this case? Please share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video important, like, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss future coverage.